The chair's ready. Now we're ready. So, Mr. Van Dever, if you want to gavel us in. All right.
All right, we'll call the Committee on Expert Review meeting to order.
All right. Thank you, sir. Roll call then. Will Haston,
Here.
Nelson Pratt,
Here.
Taylor Van Dever.
Here.
All right. The only item we have on there, other than new business, if something pops up, is the expert review process. And of course, you guys are already familiar with that. Just by way of, for those that might be listening, excuse me, the committee discussed the fee structure, advertising, and outreach to generate interest, and further requested to compare expert review forms in current use with the review form template previously provided by Mr. McGuinn and Mr. Button. So you've got that template in front of you now, which is currently in use, and I guess we'll open up to you for discussion.
All right, so guys, last meeting we discussed, I guess he just summarized kind of the results of our last meeting. I think my goal today, or hopefully our goal today, would be to create an actionable motion that we could bring to the board at the conclusion of this meeting. I don't know how in depth or maybe summarize that may be. But specifically, the items that we discussed last time were the fee structure and the form adoption. And then I've got a couple other ideas we may throw in there, but is there anything else you guys want to present as options here?
I'll say really just one question. I believe I was reading in the documents that the form that was provided that we have the PDF of would also be available to the review appraisers in electronic format, like a Excel or fillable format, in addition to what we have. I believe that was the case.
They said it was sent in PDF form,
Yeah.
But my guess is whoever
It's a
sent it has it in
fillable-
Excel
yeah.
form as well.
Yeah, it's they can type in it. Like I could go in and fill it in.
And that is, that form that we were looking to potentially adopt is something that would be a requirement. It kind of supersede what's in place currently, correct?
As far as we know, there's nothing in place currently, so it would either be
Just this is like a suggested form that we currently have. Is that correct?
This is the one that they use right now.
Yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, this is a form that they use.
Yeah.
We didn't create this.
Right.
but Yeah, this is a form that they have.
And so the action, I guess my question is, would the action include utilizing the new form as a replacement or as an alternative to this one where they could use either one? I guess would be my main question.
Well, the way I understand it, this is just a private appraiser's choice that they're currently using, not something that that's not presented by the
It's not
state.
presented by the state. That's why I was just getting clarification.
Correct. So that would be at the commission's discretion
Got
if
it.
they want to make that a requirement for a form that you come up with, that they use that within their reviews, or if you want to just be providing it as an option for them.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Were you saying that we wanted to adopt the form that was required, or just have a form that's available that we basically champion?
So I think that's our choice here. We have two forms that have been provided to us as a committee. One's been used by a private appraiser that does reviews for the state, and the other is provided by, I think, Kevin McGuigan and Randy Button as a suggestion. And it's probably one that's maybe more generated from Appraisal Institute classwork, appraisal review type process there. And I think it's probably up to us whether we want to make it a suggestion or a requirement. And I'm open to either. And I guess we can open that up to discussion.
When we receive a complaint and the complaint is filed and then the review is performed, is the review in this form or whatever format this is that turned in as part of the review?
Are you asking, do they provide the review within this form?
Yes.
Yes, they do. And then any additional comments that they have or any suggestions they have, they place at the end.
I mean, I wouldn't put anything into a motion yet till we have some discussion, but my thought is that form they provided is organized, detailed, and could be a helpful tool for anybody reviewing. But in the context of us needing to get more people on the review panel, there's some firms that may have their own form that would be adequate as well. So I would lean towards utilizing this as a tool or resource for someone to use as a guidelines, as maybe the requirements and kind of a path of what we'd like to see. But if we're going to try to open it up to get more people to do the reviews, then someone's already got a template that meets those similar qualifications. I wouldn't necessarily want to eliminate them maybe potentially having interest because they don't want to use a new form. So just for conversation, I would think it's a great tool as a suggested use, but if someone has experience doing reviews and they have their own form with adequate and similar data, that they could use it. That would be my initial thought.
Yeah, I fully agree. I wouldn't want to turn away a person that does reviews on a regular basis because of the form.
Agreed.
But I do think presenting it with the request is a good thing, because there may be folks out there that aren't accepting the assignment because they don't have a form, they don't have really the background to do it. So I think this is a good suggestion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, wouldn't want to make it any more cumbersome to become a review appraiser for us. And I think the whole reason we're having these conversations is to speed the review process up. And so wouldn't want that to scare anyone away from being able to review. And also, I mean, you're having to follow USPAP, and as long as you follow USPAP, you know, that accomplishes what you need to accomplish. So, but I agree. I think a format or something to go by would be helpful for a potential reviewer. Have we discussed, I know that we threw around some review fees that would be available for a potential reviewer. Have we gotten any further, or we want to?
Well, let me stop you there if I could. Let's get past the form and let's get something tangible on the form, and then go to the fee thing. So we can kind of itemize this discussion if we could. And I don't really know how to use this iPad here, but okay, there we go. My question to you all, because we have this printed one in front of us that was from the private practice, and then we have the form example from Randy and Kevin. Do we have a preference as to which one, or potentially both? Because honestly, if we're not going to make it mandatory, you have examples and options, I guess, to present. Is there any commentary there?
I would just provide them with both and just allow them to see the formatting and how they need to shape their review. I think all the information you can get would be helpful.
Yeah, I would agree, provided that whoever provided this one that's redacted was okay with us sharing that information that they created. You know, I don't know if that's something they just had a blank form or we took one and redacted it. Yeah. So,
We redacted a
So
form.
yeah, I mean, if we could utilize that as another example, that'd be great, but we probably want that person's permission prior to doing so, I would think.
Yeah,
I can
personally.
reach out to the reviewers, but there are multiple reviewers that can use this form.
Okay, perfect.
So number one, I like the fact that this is already in practice and that the legal team is familiar with it and comfortable with it. So I like that.
Yep.
But number two, the one that Kevin and Randy provided, I like because it has some suggestions and some ideas of maybe people that haven't done this before. It gives you a little bit more context as to how to respond. It's more of a checklist format, which may be good, may be bad. But I do like that it's asking specific questions to the reviewer to be answered. So I'm probably a fan of including both, because I think both of these provide a different level of explanation and a different option.
And I do want to just bring to attention, I think I utilized this form that Randy and Kevin provided when I did that review for the board or the commission. And if I recall, the USPAP standards, there were a couple of them that were off a little bit. So, you know, when we provide this information, we just need to have a warning or that says that these advisory opinions or the standards that you're trying to locate when you're doing the checklist, that it almost they need to be checking that themselves and making sure that all that's done correctly, because I tried to follow every standard and rule, and it was a little bit off from what the current USPAP is. So you
Meaning
know.
like it just came from a prior.
Yeah, it came from an older, use PAP. Just need to keep that potential reviewer aware that they need to, use up-to-date checklists.
Okay. Well, in regard to maybe moving on from this topic, can we group this together and say the commercial review form example 2025 and where's the other title?
Yeah, it's labeled, review form and current use.
Okay, yeah, there it is. Review form and current use, that both of those documents could be made available or would be made available to potential expert reviewers.
Sir, we can do that. And then, and to your point about the disclaimer, we can add something to that at that effect. We've done that with some other templates or examples, guides that we've done with like Land Surveyor or whatever to make sure that one, it's their responsibility, and home inspector same way. They get a software and they start running the software, but they're responsible for their end product and for the current standards, whatever those are. So some disclaimer to that effect will be included. Yeah.
Should we, obviously, we're not making a motion because we're not in front of the board, but should we tailor a motion to be prepared for later today?
Yes, sir. What you could do is just in committee vote, and then that would be your motion. So the committee would make a motion, much like Dr. Sunderman does with his review. He makes a motion, and then the board will second or not, and then so the committee would say, "This is our motion," and if it's unanimous, then we go into that board meeting with a motion already packaged. Yep.
So I would say that we would make a motion to present both and we'll specify the document names to each reviewer upon engagement.
Yeah.
So can I clarify the form that's incorrect? Is that going to be updated?
Yeah, we can reach out to them, I suppose. Is that what you want to do?
Yes.
Okay. I just don't want to give incorrect information to the expert reviewers.
We don't want to confuse.
And that one's, I just want to get the document name correctly. Give me 1 second.
Was that just specifically related to a previous version of UsePAP? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I was looking at the year
Mike, yeah.
thing.
Oh, I got to turn it off.
Yeah, so I'm not sure the year of the appraisal that I was reviewing, but when I looked at the use pat that pertained to that year, and I was looking at this document, I couldn't find, I couldn't do the checklist because I couldn't find the right standard. So then I had to abandon this and make sure that I was reviewing it correctly based on the standard, and it was not correct. So, yeah, we just need to have a disclaimer that says, the standards may have changed.
Sounds good. And then Mr. Van Dever, just before I forget, because I've seemed to be doing that these days. When we get to committee report in our full board meeting, that's when we'll do the motion then. So when you're giving your report, yep.
Okay, so to go back, our motion is going to be to include the review form and current use and the review form example 2025 to potential reviewers. Okay. Any other comments on that?
Are we going to include any of that additional conversation that we're going to have about fees in that one motion, or would you separate?
I want
that
to
into
separate
two?
those.
Got it.
Yep.
Yeah, that works.
And we're going to make a motion that we recommend these two forms, not that we're requiring the
Correct.
two forms.
Yep, recommend.
So you can either, excuse me, if you were to vote on it in committee, then it would be a committee motion, or just any individual in the committee can make their individual motion in the full board meeting. So however you want to do it.
Let's
If you
go
want to
ahead
give
and
it the
vote on
full
it now
force,
and get it presented. So this committee will make a motion to include the review form and current use and review form example 2025 that we will present to be corrected to the current version of USPAP as a recommendation to reviewers when engaged.
Yes, I agree.
Agreed.
Second.
All right. So you've got a motion from the chair, and then we've got a second from Mr. Hasten. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, hearing none, then this committee is gonna, that's passed in this committee, and then that'll be the motion for the full board. All right.
All right, moving on to the next item of business on the same topic. We'll discuss fees. I think the legal team notified us that all fees, regardless of residential or commercial, to their knowledge, has been $600 per review. Is that basically accurate?
Commercial is more,
Do you know how much? Lauren?
a couple hundred more, but we don't really get a commercial reviews.
So does anyone have any thoughts on that?
So $600 is the fee that we currently pay a residential for a residential review. Is that correct?
Right, between 500 and 600,
Between
yes.
500 and 600. Okay. And again, I know I'm beating a dead horse because I felt like I did this last time, but in doing the review that I did, it was very time consuming. And if I had to do that for $600, I probably would turn down the opportunity to do a review. That's my 2 cents.
One question I have about the current RFP process, I believe those are sent out I don't know if that was annually or every couple of years. Are those fees stated on there, or is that the feedback from the kind of a fee structure that was set up by people providing what their quotes were?
It depends on what type of document we use. If we can use a document request, I don't know the name, so don't quote me on that. One of them has a fee stated, and the other is essentially like a bid process where individuals provide their fee range for us. Typically, we would provide a range in how we normally do it, but we've tried both before.
Got it. And the response wasn't great either time, right?
No.
Yeah, understood. Is there, is there any thoughts about, including a set fee versus a range, or changing anything in the process to generate interest? I mean, what are y'all's feedback been from people like, as far as fee structure goes?
I'll just kind of reiterate what I stated before. I do understand that it is a onerous task to do this, and I don't think the individuals that do it are necessarily doing it for money purposes. Because if we were to be able, like the market rate versus what our rate is always going to be a little bit different, but we also have to think about how many contracts we want to get from reviewers. And then, so the contract is for usually a set amount. And then also the available funds that we have as a board or commission in order to get those expert reviewers. So I think fees are definitely an important part of it. And there's definitely, if it was $500 or $600 a couple of years ago, that probably needs to go up now. But I'm not sure how, I don't know if we're ever going to have a 1-for-1 when it comes to fees versus the amount of work that the person has to do. If that's even possible, because I'm just thinking logically, it's how like the volume of work we get versus it's always been an interest issue. And I don't think the interest necessarily comes down to the fees. I think it comes down to just like the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that probably more people, or the people that do the reviews, are probably doing it for maybe not for the fees, but I do think that if the main issue that's been brought to our attention is the speed, I think there's probably a few appraisers that are on the fence whether or not they would do a review. And if they were incurred, if a fee gave them the incentive to do that, I think they may do that. Now, that may be the wrong reasons, but I do think that time is money. And the more time it takes you to do something, you would like to be compensated for it. I just think that increasing the fee would hopefully garner a little bit more interest. Now, whether we can do that, I don't know. What is our budget? Do we know what we have available to do to, so we can't set a fee without knowing what we can afford.
Right. And all of that is, taken into words account when we get our contracts that are back from folks. So if it just really kind of depends on the amount of response we get versus what the need we have and how it goes from there. So typically what has been happening is if someone responds to the RFP and they're qualified, they get the contract. But if we have like more interest, we can be more selective. And of course, depending on how much the range is, I wouldn't focus on necessarily the budget unless we're setting like an exorbitant fee. Okay. Like something we're saying, oh, you're going to get $3,000 for a review per review, then we'll have an issue. But also we usually don't really get questions back in the RFP process related to it. So we can definitely, I think a competitive fee is going to be helpful in the process, but I wouldn't worry about kind of necessarily what our budget is. We can make that work.
Just throwing this out there, the VA just increased their fee for residential VA appraisers in the state of Tennessee to $750 per appraisal. So I think at the very least, we need to be commiserate with an actual appraisal fee that's done for a residential appraisal. I think that should be the floor, in my opinion.
And I did have while I was talking, I had remembered I had a question. I think I wanted to clarify, I think the speed issue is more so how long it takes to resolve a complaint, because the amount of time in order to get the review back is really kind of a self-paced situation. And then the amount of time that it also takes for the whole complaint to be done is a timing issue, because this board only meets quarterly. So it could take maybe, 2 to 4 weeks to complete a review. But if that is done, let's say we send it to somebody in July, we don't have another meeting until October. So it's going to be a longer time period just because of the timing. So I think I don't think we have people get the reviews back in time, and they get 30 days to do it. So timing is really kind of something that we can't really control. But we do try and get everything on the report as quick as possible. If we get a report back, Taylor's very fast with what she does. We'll get it in, send a review. They have 30 days, and we get it on the report as soon as we can. And conditional dismissals, as she was saying, they move on a rotating clock. So it's not dependent on the board meeting. So those do get closed sooner. But I think you said 750. I don't foresee that being an issue if that's something you're looking at. Everything else, yeah.
If we were to conclude that we like the range of fees, does that present you guys any issues, or does it matter in the RFP process?
I think we probably would need a set number, but if there is, I think what we would do here is maybe my suggestion is to come up with a range and set it a range amount for residential, set a range amount for commercial. And then we present, I think, probably a firm price with the RFP, and then see what happens. And then if for some reason we don't get a response, come back with whatever is in the range.
Just, that sounds good to me. One question, did you say that on the commercial, it's currently they provide a fee, or is there a suggested range now on the commercial?
We don't have a suggested range, but usually the commercial, because it's more extensive, I would say if you wanted to set residential at 750, then probably, $950 or for commercial, usually it's a little bit more, 950, 1,000, something like that.
And I'd say it's probably, sorry, Will, I would say it's probably more, even more so a case by case basis than the residential because they're typically
Right.
not form based. So could be complexity of the property. So is there any flexibility on that relative to the commercial side? Because I could see the residential side.
So we can, usually we do one for the other, but if you wanted to set a specific fee for residential and then solicit a range for those that do commercial, that's an option. But I will, we very,
right.
very rarely receive commercial reviews.
Yeah.
So
And I wouldn't try to make it more difficult on you guys. I just know that if there's a set fee for that, there's probably a lot of people who just won't even look at it if they don't have
Right.
the opportunity to give a bid on the commercial side.
I don't know what. Yeah, so we haven't had one in years,
Yeah.
commercial review. So
And given that, I
if
think it'd be
anyone knows what the range would be for commercial review,
I think Nelson, and I don't want the words in your mouth, but I would think you're going down the route, and this is what I would encourage as well. But when we as commercial appraisers get bids to do jobs for
Mhm.
lending institutions, they give you a synopsis about what the property is, and you know the complexity before you bid on it. And I would, I would think that, excuse me, I would think that maybe we want to go that route. And I mean, maybe we set a ceiling for it. I don't know, but I don't think you want a commercial appraiser. Again, if it's a contracted appraiser that's doing the work, I guess they have to do it for that amount. I mean, that's,
well,
that's why I don't
depending
know.
on the complexity, if there is an issue, I believe that a person would be able to submit something that would say, this requires additional time. X, can you consider raising whatever the fee would be based upon that? So if there was something that was like, I don't know, commercial review of the Empire State Building in Nashville, because it's coming, maybe, I don't know. If it was something like that, then they would be like, okay, this is an exception.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I could see that where an appraiser would have the ability to come back, or a review appraiser would have the ability to come back and say, hey, this is very complex. Can we talk about the fee?
Right.
Anybody have any ranges they want to throw out?
I mean, based on our conversation, I would think a range for the residential, right now, there's a range of $100, like 750 to 850, kind of a range. Is that, kind of keep it within the existing range that's in place now? Is it $100 that's in place now? Is that what we were talking about?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would
Is that
even
align with the
mind
market?
going 700 to 900, but I mean, I know that y'all, if we want to keep a $100 range, then
Yeah,
750 to 850 is great with me.
I've got probably a difference of opinion a little bit. The one I wrote down for residential was 750 to 1250. And honestly, before we started talking, I was leaning more towards 1250. Personally, as a motivation to get people on this list and to do a good job. And to do a good job, it does take time. And I don't think people that haven't done it in the past are going to be motivated by additional $100. It just doesn't, it's not going to work. So my suggestion on a residential range would be 750 to 1250.
And then from that, just correct me if I'm wrong, they would have to specify an exact amount before that goes in within that range. Would that be correct?
Usually we would need a set amount to put in the RFP.
Got it.
So the range is helpful in that if for some reason, we do a solicitation, doesn't work, we have leeway.
Got it.
I just get nervous saying, hey, there's a range, and I'll be like, oh, well, I watched the committee meeting and they can go up 1250, so I'm gonna wait for that. But yeah,
We could pick a number, $1,000. If that
I mean,
makes it easier. That's why I was asking, does it
Yeah.
present problems to have a range? If it's easier to have a number, let's just pick a number.
I'm great with Fallon. Again, I will go back and say that my review process took a long time. to do it correctly and to have it be thorough enough to make sure because this is, again, we're here to protect the public. And to do that properly, you've got to sort of dig in and make sure all the i's are dotted and t's are crossed for an appraisal. So I will go with $1,000.
Right, so not crafting our motion yet, but for now, we're gonna say our suggestion for residential review is $1,000.
Of course, all of it, anything that the decision that the board would make, we would take that back to contracts and just make sure it hits all the boxes. So they'll have to make sure that there's not something floating in, the ether somewhere that would prevent us from doing that. But at least this is a starting point. We can go to them and say, hey, this is what the board would like to do. Where are we at on that? So we can't really have that conversation unless we know what the board wants. So, and that's what we're doing here. And then I'll report back if we run into some snags or we need to just fire, we can do that. But, at least now I'll memorialize your will and then take that to them.
Okay.
And then one final question on the commercial side of it. Is it, given the lack of requests that we've had over the last several years, would it make sense just to have an RFQ type process for the commercial, or is that just cumbersome for you guys and it's easier to have a set amount? I just unfamiliar with that process.
I think the other option was a DA is where we tell them to submit what they would like to do. And so if that's the process we want to do with commercial, we can try it that way.
Does that add a lot of
I mean, it's literally just like a different form.
Okay.
So it's just it would cost, no.
For commercial, what if we pick our number with an asterisk and basically, if there's some particular situation like she mentioned, the Empire State Building, that doesn't fit any normal fee structure, you are then able to just submit your fee and then it's either accepted or denied by the legal team?
We can ask. I mean, like we can do that. And then, of course, but it's stated in their contract, I'm pretty sure, that if there's, for some reason, that there's an exception, then to let them know that, but we can make that information more clear in the commercial request that we place out there.
All right, perfect. Anyone have an amount for commercial? We're all three commercial, right? Yeah, I mean, I would fully expect this number to be proportionate to what fee, residential fees to commercial fees are in the real world. And also they've said that there's not a ton of them, so I don't think fees should be a barrier here.
Yeah, I would think, as long as you can still caveat that with the scope of work on one of these could be vastly different in either direction, really. But as long as you had some flexibility there, if we got no interest, then have the ability to bid it out.
So it helps you guys to have a fee for commercial. Is that correct? Oh, sorry.
Thank you. It just depends on what kind of contract document we want to do. If we want to put one out that has a specific amount, we can do that. Or if we want to leave it blank and allow people to name their price, we can do that. It depends.
So I would vote that if we're going to do this, maybe you treat it as a floor at minimum and say, hey, if you're going to accept this type of work, here's the base number. And then if there's an exception that exists, present your proposal.
So what we could do is we could run a solicitation with a set amount and see if we get any bids. And then if we don't, we can try the other way.
So I think then we're talking price floor for commercial.
Do we know any review appraisers and what they're typically, what the market is?
I actually posed this question to some people at a TAC event and no one really gave me a fee. I mean, they asked for an update from the board meetings and I gave them an update and no one presented one. So I've kind of come up with one on my own, I guess. I don't know if you guys have or not, but willing to sit back, see if you have a fee, and if not, I'll suggest one.
I think if we're going to have one is more of a floor, it'd be different than what it would be for everyone. I would think if we're going to have $1,000 for residential, the floor would be 2,000 for the commercial, something in that range. But it could vary based on the complexity and scope of each review, but not doing those on a competitive fee basis. I don't know what necessarily the market is for those right now.
Yeah, I to me, I am just leaning more towards doing it on a contract basis. I mean, I can set a floor if we'd like to, just to have a number. But I just feel like, you get a simple 1 acre tract, vacant land that's been appraised versus a, 200,000 square foot shopping center with an anchor tenant, I just feel like there's so much movement in the commercial scopes that it, to me, and since we're not doing a whole lot of them, I just feel like a more of a contract basis is what I would lean to. But I'm willing to, $1,500 to $2,000. I mean, seems, appropriate to me.
My number was going to be 2,500. I think I'm leaning high side. It sounds like compared to you guys, but I'm open to revising that something a little bit lower. I personally probably wouldn't go below 2,000. So if we want to pick one and vote before we, decide to make our committee motion.
Yeah, I mean, if I believe Nelson said 2,000, you're in the 2,000 territory. That's great with me.
Yeah, I think with the caveat as mentioned that if the scope of work could dictate something different, then I think that's good, particularly if we need a floor on those, if that's easier.
All right, so if us three would like to vote on a price floor of $2,000 with clear communication that if the scope of work dictates that the reviewer could make a proposal for an additional fee.
So you got a
Second.
motion from Mr. Van Dever, a second from Mr. Haston. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, hearing none, then that'll be your motion as a committee when we get to the committee report. So we've got two motions floating right now.
Okay. Yeah, those are the two main things that we discussed last meeting that we wanted to get some action on. So I feel pretty satisfied with where we're at. And we've also found throughout the process, there's not a lot else that we can do, but is there anything else we want to talk about? Maybe working towards, I mean, I'm open to additional motions if we can come up with any, but also don't want to really overstep our bounds or complicate things or confuse anything. But I know those are the two main issues that we had.
Keep in mind too, I mean, this committee, if, this isn't your only chance. If you're like, you can't think of anything right now, but you're driving home, that sort of a thing, like, oh, there was that, then, next meeting or whatever, it's just a simple agenda item. It's not, we can reconvene. So you're not only getting one bite of the apple and that's it, 2 years from now, and then, moratorium on that,
I feel like we should definitely reconsider these things within, maybe annually or every couple of years, because, the fees can get completely out of hand. Maybe like the $600 is obsolete now. And now we realize that. So it should be revisited, I think, at some point in the future, whether we're on the board or committee or not, doesn't really matter. But I feel like the board should stay on that a little bit more frequently. One thing, Nelson, were you going to say something?
Go ahead and finish that one.
I was going to kind of change the topic a little bit. So if you have anything.
My only question was, is there a certain date that this goes out to the public to request those? Is that like on a certain day each year, or is that just as needed, or is there a scheduled time to publish this next?
It's as needed.
As needed,
It's just
okay.
like when, sometimes if the board they want another, they want somebody else in the mix, maybe we need somebody, or
Yeah.
maybe somebody's coming to the end of their term, and that's automatic. Contracts will reach out to me, say, hey, this person's coming to the end of their term. We need to fill this gap, and then that's.
Are there any limitations as far as like notifications of when that's posted? Is that a blast email, or is there any limitations on if we wanted to forward that to people or promote that for people to have interest in any way? Is there any kind of conflict or restrictions there?
I think what we do is we typically just send it out to the licensee base, but if there's other individuals outside of that you would like to send it to, if you can let us know.
We do have a pre-distribution list that's available to us, but that needs updating. I mean, you can imagine contact numbers and the like. So, if there's somebody that you think would be interested, and anyone and within the sound of my voice too as well, then let us know and we'll include them on the list to make sure they get a direct, solicitation. I mean, it's posted in sort of public notice domain, where appropriate. And to Anna's point, we can send out to the base as well. But sometimes, it's somebody gets an email that's in the business. That's a little, that helps kind of move things along. Yeah.
So I guess where I was going to take it next is, obviously you guys communicate these results to appraisers and at least appraisers that are interested in being reviewers. But could we get this information that we just adopted onto our board section of the website? Is that something that's reasonable, or does that take up?
Yeah, there's been a change in philosophy there. We're just so we're going towards ADA compliance with all of our boards, and so there's been a standardization. If you were to go to Reg Boards today, you'll notice that all the boards are standardized. You click on any tab, regardless of what the board is, the same format, same template, and so as a result, we've been somewhat constricted through those announcements that we used to do. So you're not wrong. We used to do that. And that's typically what a website's for, to communicate to our base. But we do that now primarily through MyEMA or through notifications or through public domain sites. And in this case, it would be on our agenda. They could, that information would be available. I mean, we're going to memorialize this and then they can, reference that at any time if they needed to. So, I mean, both the video and the notes too, when you approve that the next meeting, they'll have that information there.
Well, I guess the main reason that I was going to ask for that is, I think it's important for the appraisers that I guess we are governing are completely aware of the standard that they're going to be held to in a review process. And so just making it as abundantly available to everyone. I don't know if you can email blast it, say, hey, this is going to be the new form, that if you're subject to any sort of complaint, this is going to be the review process that it goes through, or just on the open site. I just feel like that's important so that people know exactly what standard they're going to be held to.
Of course, it'll be on the solicitation. We did discuss that, and so Anna was good to remind me of that. But then also, we have folks that sign up for those blasts. We can conduct a notice to them and say, hey, the board is that it was in their or within their will that they would like you to be aware of the sort of when you're in a disciplinary action process. And I would encourage those that haven't signed up to sign up for those notices. I've signed up for a bunch of them and it's been helpful. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
And when we send out the solicitations for it, we can craft, see if there's additional language that can come out. And then whenever that happens, run it by y'all, see if that's something, whatever the language looks like, if that's what you want it to look like, we can do it that way too. But anyone can sign up to be notified for any of the information that we put forth out. But those are the two different methods of communication we can use.
And my next part of that was, once someone, either becomes a trainee or becomes an appraiser, can this be packaged together and submitted to that person as soon as they get trainee or licensed or whatever, so that they're aware for their career moving forward that this is the standard? Is that a possibility?
It's not outside I think the pale. It's just typically we've been actually when someone's freshly licensed, a lot of their packages, we've been limiting that deliberately. There's a lot of reasons for that, but some of it's just cost. Some of it is, exposure due to changing information. And then, sometimes the edits take a while and then there's a lag and sometimes a gap in that regard. So I think we've, at the time of notifications, we're sending them a letter and we're saying, hey, look, this is where you can find that information. So they are getting that. They're getting directed to our website, to the staff, the support, that now belongs to them now that they're into that realm. But as far as forms and stuff, we've been avoiding some of that because it's the lag on it's just a little, And then to Will's point, they're directed to our rules and laws as well. So they have everything really at their fingertips. But we've been avoiding doing forms. We just run into some problems with forms. We're dealing with that right now with, I'll give you a good example. I'll pick on land surveyors since they're not here, but they have a couple guides and a couple forms that they use to help. And now they're working their way out of those forms or stripping them down, because what some people do is some folks perceive that as that's the extent of their responsibility and scope. They don't look at it as a guide. They look at it as, oh, if I do this, then I'm okay. And they're not looking at the rules, the laws, and so that's actually created more problems. We were anticipating we'd cut off some of those problems, and it's actually created more. It's unintended consequences, but so we're going back to that. But so yeah, we're not to say that we could expand that letter, to include a form, but we've avoided purposely some of that because of those unintended consequences. So we just have to work through and make sure that what we're sending out, we don't bump into the lessons learned, that we don't bump into those same problems. That's all.
I just feel like transparency is going to be key, because if we're proposing something new that people weren't aware of before, they need to become aware of it, right? Because I mean, right now we're the only people that are aware this is happening.
Or, and one thing, it's kind of like y'all remember from school, they would tell you the areas that the test could be on, but wouldn't necessarily give you the test because they wanted you to be proficient in all of it. If you're looking at, well, if it's just the notes in class, then I don't have to read that book, So just if we want to make sure that our letter just firmly puts them in USPAP, then they're going to be okay. If they've got a handle on USPAP and they're living and breathing USPAP, they're going to be all right.
And, I don't want this committee to continue to have to meet every single time. It's, probably a little bit less convenient for us, but maybe 2 meetings from now, do you think we should meet again to kind of revisit our decisions to see if anything new has come up?
Or if you like, you can just send me an email and as a chair of that committee,
Okay.
and just say, hey, because I can put on a committee like that, and you could just, and if you're at this point, unless we have new business, we would meet. But if you're like, hey, I've had some time to think about it, and I can be your intermediary too. You can say, hey, look, reach out to Will and reach out to Nelson and see if they feel the same or if they had something additional as well. And you can communicate to me anytime you need to. And then if you had something, our members, I could take that to our chair too. And then you could decide, yeah, I think we can either deal with that in the committee, or we can take that. That might require some full board action. We can do that too.
The reason I was asking is because it sounds like some of our actions here are going to be implemented, but then the ambiguous part is how it's going to be communicated to the appraiser and to the reviewer. So if we were maybe, kind of like we've handled with these review examples, if we were given some examples of the communication just to make sure we're on the same page. Could we get that?
I wrote that down. I've got from what I can hear, one of my action items is a notify. So I would need help crafting that anyway. And then legal would have to check off on it
Yeah.
to make sure that we didn't bump up anything. And
Just so we
yeah.
can stay aware of the process, I guess
Yep.
is my action.
No, you'll get that. I'll send
Okay.
that out to you. Yep. Well, you've checked the 3 main buckets, which was fee structure and then advertising and outreach was sort of together. And then of course the form. So pretty good work so far.
In terms of actually keeping this particular committee together, assuming Nelson and I are still on the board next year, because we're in flux here. But can we set this committee to meet next year at this time in case nothing else comes up, just to make sure that what we've put forth still makes sense?
I agree. I would like to keep this board sort of an open-ended, or this small committee more open-ended in case we're aware of anything that comes up, between now and the next meeting, or between now and the
That's
next
what I
2
thought.
meetings. And like you said, Glenn, we could just email you and get a committee meeting on the books.
And if it's all the same to the board, just to keep it really simple, would it be okay like the first meeting of the year? Because we have to do election of officers then anyway. It just seems like a natural break before you get into the calendar year. And so that you're sort of counting on that and expecting that. Yeah. And that'll be the idea. We'll post it then, and then the chair, whoever that person is, Van Dever, or if he knights somebody else, then, we can that person, whoever that is, but then they can decide in conjunction with the board chair if there's a need to, but at least we'll kind of approach it. We'll introduce the idea come the first meeting of every month, every year.
Yeah, I just feel like it should be kind of a growing thing, you know, let's keep it annual, review our own decisions, make sure we agree with what we decided.
Second.
So, yeah, if that's, I'm fine with that being a motion if that's.
Was that a motion, Ben Dever?
It can be if it needs to be.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think I can simply I'm making the adjustment now. I'll put it on there and then we'll reach out to the chair and they take it. So sounds like you have two motions then. The committee has two motions when we go into it. So when we get to the committee report, you can present it to the full board then. And then we'll take off from there. Is there any new business with the?
You know, I've just put a lot of thought into this, I guess, and this, I'm kind of taking this a couple different directions, but some of the feedback I did get from appraisers about the review process, expanding it to the experience review process. There are, and I've experienced this with some of the folks that I've reviewed, and a lot of them happen to be licensed appraisers rather than a trainee going to certified, that I almost feel like people need. There are appraisers out there that need a mentor, and I'm not sure they know where to go or how to go, but I feel like our board should be a good starting point, maybe our board and then past board members. If we could somehow or another put a database of all of us and then, you know, specify commercial or residential, and then maybe ask some past board members if they would participate in like a mentorship, like, hey, if you are about to go through the experience review process, give one of these people a call, send them an email, submit your report, like a preview process. Because I've found a lot of people are extremely uncomfortable with it, and they also don't have a supervisor that may be directly involved in their work in some cases, especially on the license side. But I feel like that would be a way for us to get back a little bit. If the board members are open, I guess you maybe could elect to not have your name put on the list, but I'm certainly open to it, and I'm sure some past board members would be open to it too. But helping mentor people, and maybe the trainees like, hey, my supervisor may not know what they're talking about. I need to get a second opinion. So I would certainly be open to that. Always happy to help people. So I don't know if you guys are too, but I feel like the complaint review and the experience review are kind of related, because if you hit the experience review early enough, there may never be a complaint review. So that's just something I wanted to throw out there, that I did get some feedback from appraisers that maybe we could start earlier in the education process.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would be willing to do that. And I think that, like you said, if you've got, if you're able to sort of cut it off at the pass and get somebody on the right path before they get in trouble, that would be, you know, preferred. But yeah, and I know that there's probably several appraisers that are sort of into their career that would be willing to do the same thing. That might be willing to pass some time that way.
I wonder if you could bring that up at the end of our committee report after we make our motion.
Yeah, I was
and
going to
just explain
suggest
that. Yeah.
bring it up at the full meeting.
And then
Also
new
with the
business.
caveat that just know people will contact you. There's a running joke that I think my name is on a bulletin board somewhere. I gave my email out once and I get emails all the time about CE. And I was like, who are you? But that's not really a problem, but I would suggest bringing it up at the meeting.
That's all I've got.
All right. Yeah. Then to Anna's point, I got somebody reached out to me and still does, every once in a while from Athletic Commission. And I haven't had that board for 4 years, you know, so, and they're not easily persuaded. I think they don't believe me when I tell them. So yeah, that can happen sometimes too, because you're the number, right? You're the guy. Yeah. So, yeah. All right.
All right, unless anyone else has anything.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
won't be able to adjourn because it's a continual meeting,
Okay.
but we'll take a break,
Yeah.
recess, and then we'll full board meeting at 10. Thank you all. I think we are after 10, so we'll probably need to get in our places and then get started. So Mr. Mansfield, if you want to gavel us in, then we'll get after it.
Is this on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, at this time, we'll call to order the Monday, July 20th, 2026 meeting of the Tennessee Real Estate Appraisal Commission.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, for roll call then, Taylor Van Dever,
Here.
Brett Mansfield,
Here.
Will Haston,
Here.
Francie Mello,
Here.
Sandra Tuck, Nelson Pratt,
Here.
Dr. Mark Sunderman,
Here.
Eric Robinson, and Alex Bynum.
Here.
All right, thank you. We do have quorum. Just as a notice to those that may be present or listening online, as always, we just want to let you know that there is a public comment period located at the end of the agenda. And so if you're online at that time, when we get there, just please sign in and then we'll acknowledge you and it'll be items related to the agenda. And then also if you're present, if you would sign in to this sign-in sheet to my left, then we'll acknowledge you at that time. The meeting notice of the July 20th, 2026 meeting of the Real Estate Appraiser Commission has been noticed on the website since September 26, 2025. This month's agenda was posted on July 13th, 2026. All right, we're at the agenda then.
Has everybody had a chance to review the agenda? Just need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Up next is the approval of our meeting minutes from April 20th, 2026. Any edits or discussion? Just need a motion there.
So moved.
Got a motion on the floor?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Up next is application reviews.
Okay. And just if you don't mind me setting it up really quick, you do have, first of all, let me apologize for some of the trouble that you were having on that link. We've had some added security measures. Naturally, we're always looking for ways to strengthen and improve and harden our defenses against those threats that could emerge. So as a result of that, there was some difficulty accessing that, but you do have it in front of you. There's 3A and 3B are two applications. And by application, it's not a full application. We're just looking towards their fitness to continue in the application process based on the character questions or the conviction. So it's a narrow focus. We're not looking at their application in front of us. If the boards deems them fit to continue in the process, then that application will come. We have their application, then then it'll be based on just those objective factors as articulated by statute and rule. But right now we're looking at their fitness. So let's take the first one. The first one is Ms. Coons. There's her letter and then the recent conviction. And so for some of you that may have not had the time to read her letter, let me just give you a second to do that, to process that, and then yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Mhm. So I'll give you about 2 or 3 minutes just to kind of peruse that, and then I'll give you more of the summary and then what we're looking at, okay? If I may, just let me briefly interrupt you just to give you a quick little summary of kind of what's before us and what we're looking at. And then if you need more time to wrap up the letter, just let me know and then we can provide that as well. But okay, so what you're looking at, you have her response. You also have a letter of endorsement from I presume will be her sponsor. It is an initial trainee applicant, so we don't have someone that's in. They haven't entered into the industry yet. And you have the 2018 conviction before you. That's the most recent that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of any felony convictions. Otherwise, this would be a fresh start review. However, we do have there's a couple bad check related convictions and several theft and forgery convictions from 2004 to 2010. And so, you have that pattern. And then looks like we had a break from 2010 to 2018. And then we've had, it looks like an extended break since then. So it's sort of a mixed bag. That's why I really, and then the two things we're looking at are TCA 6239-316, which states the commission may deny the issuance of a certificate as a state licensed or certified real estate appraiser to an applicant who has been convicted of a felony or any of the grounds enumerated in this chapter. And so what would be some of those grounds that would be enumerated? Well, Rule 11255-01, 9-2B, the commission may deny an application for registration, license, or a certification if the background information for the applicant includes, in Part B, which would be that enumeration there, is convictions of any criminal offense involving dishonesty, breach of trust, money laundering against individual organizations controlled by the individual, or agreements to enter into a pretrial diversion or similar program in connection with the prosecution for such offenses. So you're looking at and this is typical of most financial industries. You have moral turpitude laws, which could be directly related to the industry for which they aspire to enter. So that's where we're at. And then of course I'll have to lean heavily on legal to help us navigate those waters, the practical side of that. Is there any just immediate questions that may come to mind as you read or digest and sort of orient yourself to that?
What is she applying?
Initial training.
You turn well, just bring it down, your microphone.
Was the theft, was it from an employer, as in someone who hired her and trusted her to work for them? The First Franklin?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I don't know her employment, but that's a possibility.
We don't have that information,
but we could go back out and of course verify that. That was one of the things that came to my mind as well, but we don't have that information.
Has this person worked in the appraisal office of Doyle Wilson since 2019, or are they just acquaintances?
Will, did you get any background on that? I'm sorry, the other Will. Yeah, Will, did you get any background on that?
No.
So the only information provided is what's been before you, provided in the letter to her. She's been given the opportunity to provide any information she would like to explain, to including details of the events which occurred. I don't believe there's many of those details within that letter itself, so I'll let you make your decisions once you read that letter. And I believe she's also submitted twice. She also submitted the letter from her potential sponsor, and so I have no information beyond what is found in those letters. So like I said, she was given the opportunity to provide any information whatsoever that she would like to discuss. So we don't have any information beyond that which is in the letter related to any of the convictions.
She does say that she has maintained steady employment with the same supervising real estate appraiser since May of 2019.
Did you say that she has applied twice for training, or are you saying that she just provided 2 letters?
She provided the letter from the potential sponsor too. So what I'm saying is the information before you is what was provided by her to explain the issues. And we have no additional information beyond that. I can tell you this, she has never been licensed with us. She has never applied for a license with us at any period in the past, with the exception of this current application. So we've had no interaction with her prior to this application.
What you're talking about, Will, is if you go back, there was two asks of us. We got her initial letter with her application, because anytime they respond with answering yes to those questions, we're going to need more, right? So we got the letter from her potential sponsor, apparently who she's working with for on their office. And the second letter, the more lengthy one, was when we reached out and said, hey, we're going to need a little bit more. We're gonna have to take it before the board, and this is her chance to, appeal to the board. And then you get that's the front letter. So in reverse order date, you've got that with the conviction, and then her initial letter that she sent to us with her application when we first asked. So that's the.
I'm sure that you all won't know, but the way I look at it is she paid restitution, so therefore it wasn't a felony charge and was pled down.
I don't. I
Okay.
don't know that information. But since we don't do these very often with this board, I would all of the information that we have, you have. But for if anything's like confidential, like a TBI report, you're not allowed to have that information. So you should base your opinion based upon the information that has been provided to us. And at that time, you also keep in mind, we have the convictions before us, but the information submitted has been what the applicant wants us to read. So any information that's missing, take that for what you will. But typically we go off of the information that's based on it, face value. So my other boards are commissioned. Sometimes when they have questions about criminal convictions, they'll ask us questions. And I was like, I don't have that information because the individual chose not to give us that information. So we can go back and ask for that information, but keep in mind that person's not required to also give us that information. So we can answer your questions to the best of our ability, but some of it is just going to be vague by kind of what the nature and circumstances of what we're looking at.
Their conviction sheet does show that, according to their TCA, that there was 2 years, 2 to 4 years. So that would be in the felony range, but that she was convicted of 1120 or pled to 1129 on that page.
Usually what happens is individuals are charged with a certain superseding issue, and then they will plead to a lesser conviction. And then, of course, 1129 means 11 months, 29 days, which is less than a year, which would be a misdemeanor and not a felony. So just because I try to explain it this way, when an individual is arrested, usually a charging document, you'll throw everything you can at the wall. And then at the end, whatever sticks is what you look at.
I know in the past when we've had or situations like this, for the non-appraisers on the board, our industry is a little bit different in that any new client, that is going to be disclosed on the front end. So even if we were to approve this individual, that would be something that most banks, whatever, they require some sort of verification of that as well too. So it doesn't end with just us saying, you're approved.
But whether that person receives that approval on the back end doesn't necessarily have to go into your decision today. Like that is something that they would have to take on personally in their life. So.
Well, and just I've had other just that maybe had that. I don't think we're necessarily going there, but the temptation, and it's not a terrible, inclination would be, well, let me add additional requirements, safeguards, but we can't do that. There's the minimum qualifications. If it was a complaint before us, you can add just about whatever you want within scope and range, right, of the penalties. But initial application, it's just you deem them either qualified or not to move forward on the character part based on the information you have, and then that's the end of it. And then it's just minimum qualifications. They meet the minimum qualifications, then they get licensed. We can't add like, well, we need, I don't know. I don't know if this is necessarily the case here. I don't know this background, but we can't say, well, we got to mandate drug and alcohol counseling, or we need supervision. That would be punishment or punitive, and that would be a complaint. That wouldn't be
right? We don't have probationary periods either for an individual. So it is your discretion, like whether to grant or deny. And then just because something is denied doesn't mean an individual can't reapply. So a deny is a no, but it can also just be no for now.
Or if you're just like, I need more information, we could, defer at some point, but yes, to Anna's point, it's going to be if you're taking action, it's going to be a deny or an approve to move forward in the process. But if you need more information, we could take it up at the next meeting, that's up to you.
With the caveat that you might not get that information.
Correct.
So that's why I stated to look at the information as it's presented, because that is probably going to be the extent of what you get. It would logically think, oh, the board wants to hear additional information from me. I'm going to do that because I want a license, but it's not always that way, the way that it's sticks out.
I'll speak up. I believe in second chances and I believe in time served. Don't think we should double punish anyone. However, one of the victims is a financial institution who we work hand in hand with, and also passed forgery claims. And one of the most important things in our business is signatures, which I think those are two pretty serious red flags for this business in this industry. Another thing, us denying the application does not prevent this person from being employed. They have a job. They with someone they that trusts them, and we would not be preventing them from employment, which I don't really have I would not want to do that. But this person, we're not going to prevent them from having a job, and they are choosing to request to be in the appraisal profession, which I would say is more of a privilege than a right. So I would be leaning towards denial for those reasons.
Any other thoughts? Discussion?
I would say, I think you make some really good points. The one thing I think we should at least have some discussion on too is the 7 years of continuous employment within the industry and knowing those things. I don't know if that's something we either want to discuss or take in consideration or ask for any other further information about that. But I do think that is something, at least that's noteworthy. I'm not saying I disagree with any of what you're saying, because, the forgery, that to me is that's the thing that's really concerning to me. But I do think the 7 years of continuous employment is something to at least take in consideration. Not that that supersedes anything that you said, but just thought that was worthy of discussion.
I'm sorry. If you wanted the caveat too, you could say denial at this time, and then she can reapply in a year, and be a different board, and then they can decide, or, it's up to you. But I mean, it's, or you can just say deny, and she can always, I guess, reapply, just to probably end up with the same result if it's this board, it's up to you, however you want to do that. I don't mean to complicate it, but just want to make sure you have all the options that are available to you.
Would it be more helpful if we had some more information? Maybe what she's been doing from a working standpoint? So we can always go back and ask, or somebody can put a motion on the floor.
Do y'all ever have anybody ever come in to state their case?
I believe we have.
Yeah, I'm trying to think with this board. Yes, but I want to say it's been a long time, hasn't it? I know we have with like land surveyor, and I want to maybe not. Yeah, I think it was land surveyor, maybe engineers, and they, they can attend virtually. They can give a statement virtually. We've had that happen before, Yeah, I recall one just that virtual statement was provided to land surveyor board probably about a little over a year ago. And so that's an option. They were welcome to come even today. We don't just say, look, we're going to take the statement. We always allow them and welcome and invite them to do that if they want to. Obviously it's somewhat, I imagine it could be intimidating to stand before a panel, but, and folks' busy schedule where they live, all that factors in. I get that, but, we always welcome that if they want to do that.
We had one come in, not for anything criminal, but I think they lost the license or had a complaint in another state and then came here in person to
Yes,
request a
yes.
Tennessee license.
Yeah.
Is she, can you remind me the hourly, and education, requirements to become a licensed, or certified appraiser or residential appraiser in Tennessee?
I could give you that, but I'd probably create another pathway in my recollection. So let me defer to Will. Will, this is initial trainee, but certified residential is what you're asking about.
Well, I just want to know licensed. So if
Oh,
she just wanted to
licensed.
go to the very, she want to go to the sort of the lower end and become just a licensed appraiser, how long and how much education was she required to get to become a residential licensed appraiser?
For licensed appraiser, that's 1,000 experience hours. The minimum time frame is 6 months for that. However, we have never seen an applicant complete 1,000 hours within 6 months. You're probably talking on the order of about 1 year to actually be able to do 1,000 hours of experience, and that would be pretty much working on a full-time basis in a busy appraiser's office, because the trainees, when they typically start out, they're a little bit slow. So the minimum requirement is 6 months. However, that's not realistic for most of our applicants. Probably closer to a year is what we would be looking at to get that experience, and only experience obtained while licensed as a registered trainee under the supervisor on your license is acceptable for that type of experience.
Thank you. And essentially us allowing her to move forward with her trainees application, unless there's a major issue with any of the experience review or anything of that nature, then she's on path to become a licensed appraiser.
I mean, because you're talking about character issues, so that would be throughout the industry. You couldn't say, well, you're good up until a license, but we cut you off there. You know what I mean? Like it would be you're either eligible or you're not, you know, and then at that point, it's just up there if she did the work, and then if she met the minimum qualifications, we would just continue to grant licensure all the way up to general.
Unless, another criminal conviction would occur between that time period.
I guess I'm to point out or to follow along with Taylor's first comment is that I'm always for second chances, and I understand the severity of forgery and the theft from a financial institution. I don't know. This is a very tough one. I would go back to her, 7 years or however long it's been since she's had gainful employment and been doing well. So I think I would lean towards allowing her to proceed, but that's not a motion. I'm just throwing my 2 cents out there.
I tend to agree with your comments. I'm not happy with the situation, but at the same time, I hate to think that because of this, she is forever damned. I mean, that's in essence what we're saying. I mean, it's been 7 years. How many years do we have to wait? 15, 20? I mean, if this had happened again, then that would have been a different story. But it sounds like to give her this opportunity, this isn't like opening up the door for her tomorrow. There's still quite a bit of work ahead of her before she is able to be on her own again. So I'd be more inclined to say yes to this application.
I would make, as somebody who's not an appraiser, we do have a job to protect the public. And my only concern with that is is that if she was going to get a surveyor's license, that would be a little bit different. You're talking about walking into people's houses. You know, you're talking, and that's where I'm concerned of. You know, a financial institution will be disclosed this situation, but that does not mean that, you know, as if I'm the public, if I go to buy a house and, you know, I have no say so over what appraiser goes into my house. And I can guarantee you that if that was disclosed to that person, that person who's buying that house probably would not be overly happy about that certain situation. And I'm not trying to damn anybody for the rest of their life, but I am saying that to be put back in the situation of where that you could cause yourself to relapse back into that is absolutely there. There are other avenues of employment that everybody can go after, but to stay in the same avenue seems awfully dangerous to me. And that's where I think that rehabilitation is great, but we are the only safeguard that protects the public from this person being able to get a license. After this, it doesn't matter. And we all, you know, I'm not saying that they're going to commit a criminal act again. All I'm saying is that nobody's doing anything wrong till they're called.
Sounds like we're split. I mean, would anybody like to put a motion on the floor?
But, and I just will follow up on Alex's. I mean, I've read this, as soon as we received the information. I understand if this person came to me and was made known to me that she had committed some, the crimes that were committed and she was coming to my home, I would have second thoughts. But I do know that obviously she's had 7 years of no issues. Her sponsor seems to think that she is on the right path. So I do think this is going to come down to a roll call vote, but you know, we can, you know, go with, I'm not going to make a motion, but.
Well, one thing we can do is just put up a motion, see if it passes, put up the opposing motion, see if it passes, roll call vote to your point. And then if still nothing there, then we could, if we come to an impasse, then that might be some time to sort of split the baby at that point. Is it a denial and then you can reapply in a year or 2 years, that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? Or just a motion, we'll have to figure that out.
I would say that it would be very appropriate if we asked for more information. And I would make a motion that we ask for more information about what duties she is conducting at this time. To say that she has worked for an appraiser for 7 years is one thing, but if she's just answering the phone, but no, she's not handling money, she's not handling responsibility, then that's totally different in my mind and would actually make a difference in my opinion. If she has been reintroduced by this person who wants to sponsor her with responsibilities, that would make action to where that I would change my mind. So I would ask for more information and that would be my motion.
Do we need a motion for that or can we just?
We would, because we'd be deferring, but while we're gonna, we would need a second, and then maybe in discussion, there might be something that could require Mr. Bynum to amend his motion to include other items. So if we can get it all in one motion, that would be great. And maybe we'll get that from a discussion. I'm not sure. But so we do have a motion on the floor from Mr. Bynum for more information as to regards to what her duties are. And so do we have a second?
Well, additional discussion, legal indicated that they were given the opportunity to provide as much information as they felt was necessary, and they did not do it. And we've also been told that if we deny, it does not prevent them from reapplying.
That is correct. They could keep reapplying, but they keep coming back to this board, or the next board or whatever board they have. So yeah, it's not final in the sense, I guess to Dr. Sunderman's point, that it's forever. But we're saying that, if the board is saying that they're not comfortable with that right now, then it's definitely within your prerogative to deny, and she would be free to reapply at a later date.
My question would be, especially if we ask for additional information, if we're specific in terms of what we're asking for. I appreciate Alex's comment about more detail about exactly what she's been access to. I mean, I think perhaps, especially since it's been 7 years, this may have been a real major wake-up call. She did this, it's like, whoa, I really do not want to go that path again. And may be far more unlikely that she'd ever go that direction ever again. Now, if she's not had the opportunity over the last 7 years to do this, then that is a totally different story then. But yes, having maybe more detailed information on what she's had access to over the last 7 years might be very helpful.
I would also like to know if the theft and everything involved employers or clients of those employers, or what the motivation, how it even came about for the opportunity.
Okay. We do have a motion on the floor, so
Yeah, we just need a second. And then based on that discussion that we got from Ms. Mello, or if you wanted to amend your motion, but because we don't have a second yet, to include that as a part of your motion.
I'll pull my motion. So I'll rescind my motion and then we can make a new motion.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine.
would you like to do that?
I would think that we need to have a discussion about exactly what everybody would want in there, in the motion about whatever, what more information we would need, so that we don't have to keep on amending that motion and then go through that. So I would want there to be a clarification of what her duties currently are at her current employment.
Would you also like to include those specific questions you had about the clients as well as part of that? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Francie, tell me exactly what you would want to have as well.
Just need to know if those were clients and an employer who trusted her and she had access to records and things that might make the opportunity to forge or whatever available.
So you're saying like it was the victim a former employer? Maybe
Correct.
just something like that, yeah.
I'm more inclined to just ask for a motion that we have an interview with this lady.
Can we require that? Request that?
You can ask her to come. She can say no, but you can ask.
And then that's also information, is it not? Yeah.
Is that a motion?
Sorry. I make a motion that we ask for her to come to an in-person interview or by Zoom so that we can ask these questions.
Okay. Got a motion on the floor?
Second.
Motion and a second. Do we need to roll call vote this or? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think
Okay.
so.
One
All-
question, is it accepting or denying or just information request only?
Yeah, the motion is just requesting her.
Yeah,
So we're
yeah, yeah.
deferring it
That's
with
correct.
the request for her to
To give
come.
her an opportunity to appear, to answer these questions. And then if there's no appearance, then at that point, you could act on the information you have.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. All right, the second one's a little bit more straightforward. It's a fresh start review. We'll need to review Mr. White's, it's a 2005 grand larceny conviction from New York. He maintains an active CG license in Florida, which was received after that conviction.
Can I get explanation of a fresh start review?
You can. Give me just a second.
Yes. So way back in 2018, the General Assembly passed a statute called the Fresh Start Act, which targeted criminal convictions related to occupational licensing. So what was happening is we saw a lot of boards denying individuals licensure for past criminal convictions. And some boards don't have any parameters. So it could be a criminal conviction for anything, for any extent or period of time. And so what the Fresh Start Act did was allow individuals, essentially gave more guidelines. And it states that if an individual has a past criminal conviction and the board decides to deny licensure, there are a couple of extra steps that we need to do. So basically, we want to make sure that the criminal conviction, if it relates to the profession, how it relates to that person's fitness and ability to execute the profession, if there has been any evidence of rehabilitation, or if any state, federal, or other parameters require an individual to be licensed or not. So it's not as applicable in this situation because the appraisers, while you say conviction of any felony, or we have anything related to dishonesty, trust, money, or theft, or any of those types of convictions, the Fresh Start Act is more so related to, Glenn said earlier, we would have language that says moral turpitude. And what is moral turpitude? There's not really definitions for that. And then we also had individuals that had some lower level drug crimes that were being denied licensure and because of these. And so one of the things that we know is I want to say cure, but a deterrent from recidivism is the ability to enter the profession and to have employment. So that's kind of what it is, the Fresh Start Act and its intention.
Why wasn't the last case part of the Fresh Start?
It still is. But I mean, that one was, so if we look back at the rule, it is 125501-.012B. I think one states conviction of any felony, and then B states any criminal conviction related to dishonesty or anything. So like but it's just in a different category. So it's still like if you had decided to deny the license for the previous person, we would still be doing a determination and just explaining why we were denying.
So this individual's just applying for a reciprocal license, correct?
That's right. And this is the only, only other state that he's applying for a reciprocal license with?
Yeah. Let me check there. All right, check one. Okay, try there again. Go ahead.
And do we know that we're the only reciprocal state that he is applying for a reciprocal license, or is this just, I mean, do we have any other
Well,
knowledge?
it's like Will Squared, they're bouncing off of each other, it's in the meeting, but, the only thing, when we get an application, we typically will just pull them from ASC. That's how we know. I wouldn't know if they applied across the border, because I don't have access to their records, especially if they're in process. ASC doesn't report that pending statuses, However, they will report, wherever they have a license at. And so this is the only one I'm aware of. Will, did you, our other
Yeah.
Will, did you?
Yeah,
get a-
no, we don't have any
Okay.
information about pending applications at other states.
But yeah, as far as licenses in other states, I'm not aware of any. Yeah.
Only Florida.
Yeah, that's what I'm aware of. Yep.
I just noticed on the Florida license, it says issued May 29th, 2026 and expires November 30th, 2026. Is that a temporary license only?
Will, since you've got internet there, could you look them up over at ASC? stand by then.
Well, some states do 12 months and it's a certain day. So, you know, like in Kentucky, it's always July 1st. So if you get it licensed on April 1st, it's still up July 1st. That may be what happened, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to know because, and to your point, we've seen some where they do, they sync up all their license together. You know, accounting does that, you know, our land surveyors do that. Some only give a year, you know, as well. So, but we'll know here in just a second. We can look that up at ASC.
And maybe they are syncing it up, but I guess one thing, if we were going to use it as a positive in this case, the application was, or his exam was passed May 15th, 2026. So it's not like this person's been licensed in Florida for a considerable amount of time. This is all fairly new and fresh, from what I can gather.
Is it possible that he got licensed in Florida knowing that he could do that without obstacles and then immediately, where does he live? I guess I'm asking. He does?
He's reporting Florida. Yeah.
Okay.
I just, I scrubbed the application a little bit just for, you know, obviously but I did maintain the, just the location, the
Okay.
general city. Yeah.
Lynn, so he's licensed in the state of Florida per the ASC registry with an expiration of 11/30/2026. I would assume that expiration date is based on the fact of the way Florida does their licensing. We're one of the few states that does continual licensing where our license expiration dates are based on the date in which the license is actually issued. Most states don't actually do that. And on the registry, as Glenn said, his current address is listed as the state of Florida. So not showing any other active credentials.
Well, and he meets AQB typically, you know, if they're on the reciprocal, we just look at ASE. What the holdup here is that we have fresh start. So we want to make sure that we also adhere to our state statute as well, in addition to the minimum standards AQB. So yeah, although he may qualify AQB, you know, there's still a stop there. And regardless of when that conviction was, it's a conviction. So we still have to just look at it. And because the prerogative belongs to the board in light of a fresh start.
Glenn, the other item was temporary practice permits they're not listed on the
Right,
ASC
correct.
registry, so we don't have that
That's right.
information.
I guess while I find the timing of the licensing maybe odd, I feel like this fits the spirit of the act a little bit better than the first case we just heard. So I would make a motion to approve.
got a motion on the floor?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right. I front loaded those because I knew I was going to need your bandwidth. It was when you walked in this morning. So I think that was the heavy hitting stuff, you know, that we had to work through. And kudos to you for separating all that out and diligently working through that. So thank you for your efforts in that regard. It looks like then we are ready for experience interviews. I've printed out a handout with, there's 4 more added than what I initially sent to you. That's the current list I have. If it's not on that list, I'm not aware of it. So, before we take that slate, I'll read it into the record, but before we take the slate as a whole, you'll want to let me know if there's anyone else we need to add to this list. Okay. So for the record, let me just read it in. Mr. Haston, we had, Cal Ricketts, to upgrade to CG, and the recommendation was yes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay. Mr. Mansfield, we had, Zachary Shelton, for CG, and we had Jacob Cash for, CR, both a recommendation, a positive recommendation. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. And that was it.
Miss Mello, we had Isabel Wolf, upgrade to CG, and that was positive recommendation.
Correct.
Okay. Josh McPherson, CG upgrade for Mr. Pratt, positive recommendation.
Correct.
And Miss Tuck, we had Robert Butler for license, a positive recommendation. And then Mr. Van Dever, we had Brian Thompson for CR and a positive recommendation.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. All right, is there any edits before we take a motion? All right, then Chair, if you,
Just need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Got a
Second.
motion on the floor?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, education report that's solidly in Dr. Sunderman's camp, so I'll let you just introduce it there.
One comment, as I've said before, I've been very impressed with the courses that I've reviewed. We've got some very good courses that we're offering, so I've been very pleased with them. I'd like to make a motion that we have the Education Committee report approved.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Like we're ready for the budget. And that's just informational purposes only. There's no action items there. Of course, I'm willing to answer any questions you have, but I typically, as you know, I just run down to the things that jumped out at me first and then address the overall health and sort of big picture. And if there's anything I need to pick up, little picture along the way, I'm happy to do that too. But during our last meeting, we went over the months of record through February. As a result, we'll be focusing primarily on the next 3 months of record available to us. So that's March through May. And I did see a large expenditure under other in March and April. And that was for the AMC panel reporting that we're still floating in during this year's reporting period. So, those payments they go out and there's a lag, there's a delay. So during our panel reporting period, which is January through March, you're going to have payments that are going to go out as a result of what's been received. Then we transfer that to ASC. Well, those two big chunks were for that. I saw one other reallocation that was represented under technology in April. And that was the result of an overcharge that was identified and credited back to the program. So we have a pretty good team over in accounting and division that's always looking at our expenditures and our invoices, our accounts payable folks that are pretty good about and diligently reviewing and challenging anything that looks outside the ordinary. And I appreciate that. I can't be everywhere and wouldn't have the expertise for some of that deep dive. So they were able to identify an overcharge, and then that was credited back to us to one of our subscriptions. And so we're good on that front. But I don't suspect we'll see any more charges for AMC. And the reason why is because everyone's already reported. We've got counted for everyone. Those that didn't, where we opened up complaints and we've processed those already, and then they've since reported. So I don't know of any that's pending. So I think we're tracking pretty good right now through the end of June. Right now, we're sitting at 197,000 in surplus, which is pretty good. That's we're not adding a ton to reserves, which we don't want to do. We're not in a business, but at the same time too, we don't want to be running into deficits either. So we're doing a really good job, sort of, striking the right tension there. And we do have one more month of reporting, and then we got reconciliation after that through accounts, and then we'll know exactly what happened to this year. And then probably next meeting or thereafter, I'll compare our reserves in this fiscal year to the prior, so you'll have an idea, big picture, where we're going. But right now, that's all I had there. Any questions or comments?
I have a question as it
Yes, sir.
relates to our complaint review process committee.
Yeah.
When complaints, whenever you're paying a reviewer, where does it show up in this budget?
Yes,
What line?
and I'm glad you asked that, because I meant to actually say that when we were having that conversation. If you go to Edison expenses, that's right under the, you have your profits and losses, and we have it reversed there, but you have, your losses right there, Edison, and then you have salary, benefits, technology, and you have other.
Mhm.
Other is right there. If you notice, our big chunk of money from AMCs was coming out of that. Well, those are our vendors. So our vendors would include our subject matter experts. So you would see that it would come out of that line item, and it shows up on my expenditures. Like it'll say right there, I get a list of basically an itemized ledger that I keep with me as well, that I review, and in that ledger it'll have them listed, so I can see where they're at.
Would it make sense, at least presenting the budget to us, to add a specific line item for that?
Yeah, it's done through a different counting book. Edison is its own, it has to go through finance, fiscal. We can't cater it, or it's not boutique. We can tweak it. That's a service provided to us by finance, and it's provided to all the departments. But the main thing is that we can see it, and I look at that pretty regularly. And the other thing too, and where the board kicks in and it becomes instructive is as we start to, if I saw an increase in, based on the adjustments we're probably going to propose, if that happens and I saw that that was starting to eat away at at our surplus, I would bring that to the attention of the board as well. And then there might be some shifts on the complaints before it's been corrective education. There might be fines associated with that to recoup some of that. There might be a sort of a shift there. That's probably where we go. I don't see enough of those. And I know Mr. Bynum has recommended some of that. And so we may end up in that camp if we go there. Right now, we don't see a ton of, I sign those invoices when they come through from our subject matter experts. So I get a pretty good feel about how regular we do that and we see those. So I think I would, if I started seeing those regularly rolling in and it was starting to, we can see that trending from the other accounts as well down below in prior years and comparing that year end over year. If I start to see 30, 40, 50% increase, well, that's a hole in your bucket. So you just need to make sure we're adjusting for that. So yeah, but your mind's going exactly where mine's going. And so that was good question. Any other questions? All right. Well, then we'll need to move to Aero. We do have an Aero conference. I won't be in attendance to that. Melanie, our admin manager, who's been the last couple of years, she's built some continuity that she'll be headed to that. But then I also put a call out for our board members, and then Sandra Tuck and Miss Mello replied, so we'll be sending them to the conference. We just need to make it official and vote on that. But which is good timing that we're sending a contingency there because we have AQB's second draft that's in process right now. So our folks will be watching that with, like a laser, into that second draft and reporting back to the board as it pertains to that. So we'll just need a motion in that regard.
Make a motion to send Miss Mello and Miss Tuck to the Aero Conference in fall.
Got a motion on the floor?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And thank you, ladies, for doing that. I appreciate that. That's very helpful, especially given the transition that we're going through now. So appreciate it.
Hey,
Okay.
Glenn,
Yes, sir.
might be a long legal report. Do you think we could take about a 5-minute
Yes,
break?
of course we can. Yep. Let's is a 10-minute break okay? And then we'll recess and then come back and
Sure, come back.
let me
at
see.
the-
What
5
time you get
after.
there? 5 after, you said?
11:05.
Okay, we'll be back there 11:05. Thank you. See,
Actual gavel.
You do need an actual gavel.
Yeah, I think yours.
All right. Everybody, it looks like it is 11:05, so I think we're ready to go. The next item was legal. And so the legal case report, and that'll be Taylor Hilton.
Good morning. I'll just go through each complaint and then we can discuss and vote. The first one is 2026-03361. In this, the complainant alleges that they were in the process of potentially purchasing a subject property. However, shortly after the inspection started, they requested for the appraisal to be canceled. They state that the respondent advised that they did not receive a cancellation request from the client, and that the respondent states they advised the complainant that a refund could be possible minus a fee trip, but they did not make any promises. However, on May 19, 2026, the complainant requests to withdraw their complaint, and no report was provided to be reviewed. Accordingly, counsel was recommending closure.
I'll make a motion that we close per council request.
Got a motion on the floor?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries to approve council's recommendation.
Number 2 is 2026-039-861. In this, the complainant says they ordered an appraisal from the respondent and paid in advance. They explain, however, the report was never submitted. The respondent advised they were having health issues, which caused them to be delayed in submitting the appraisal, and they advised that they provided a refund to the complainant on June 20th, 2026. Accordingly, I was recommending closure.
Motion to accept recommendation to close.
Got a motion on the floor?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Number 3, 2026034251. The complainant is a homeowner of the property appraised by the respondent. The complainant included allegations of use PAP and disagreements of how long the respondent physically measured the property. I submitted, the complainant did reference a video in the complaint. However, the video was not provided, and when counsel reached out for the video, it was not received. I referred this matter to an expert reviewer. The reviewer found that use PAP was generally met in the respondent's report with the exception of the work file not being complete. They found that it was not, however, it was the opinion of the reviewer that the appraiser did not cause the overall report to be misleading or meaningful or not meaningful. So I was recommending just closing this with a letter of instruction.
I have a question. What would the letter of instruction refer to? Just the work file?
The work file, yes.
Okay, do we know if it's actually a drawing of that house? We don't know that.
I can pull up the review. I assume that if there was an issue with that, it would have been mentioned within the review, but I can check.
Yeah, it says, less than, per the sketch provided.
So yeah, I would assume then that that was included in the respondent's summary. But I will double check. I'll pull it up.
It does say sketch provided, because I couldn't understand why there was such a hubbub over the difference in the square.
Yeah, and there was just a disagreement. So I just like to include all the information provided so that the commission has the full picture of what's happening and they can determine what they think the next best step is. And so that was the complaint of what the complainant was alleging. So.
I would lean towards closing this. It doesn't seem like the appraiser did anything incorrect. The complainant is just alleging that it didn't take long enough. Like, technology and our equipment these days, you can do measurements pretty fast. I don't think that's a violation of anything.
Yeah, and the letter of instruction was just referring to what the reviewer noted, but I am open to closure if that's what the commission feels is appropriate.
Was that a motion?
I will make a motion to close.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries to close.
Number 4 is 2026013361. In this, the complainant submitted 3 appraisal reports in their complaint and alleged that the use PAP errors made by the respondent established a pattern of similar deficiencies. However, the respondent asserted that as evident by the prepared by section on the submitted reports that the respondent only completed one of the appraisals that was provided by the complainant. Likewise, the expert reviewer advised their analysis is limited to the one appraisal prepared by the respondent and that the other 2 reports cited by the complainant were prepared and signed by a different appraiser. The expert determined that the 2 additional reports should not be established as a pattern deficient practice by the respondent. However, in review of the relevant report completed by the respondent, they did determine the following use PAP violations. They note that the report identifies the relevant recent transfers and contains a plausible general explanation of how the renovation occurred. However, it did not provide sufficient report level analysis of recent transactions. Similarly, the report did not appear to adequately explain the basis for certain material comparable sales adjustments, and there was not a highest and best use developed by the appraiser.
I don't quite follow the 2 additional reports. So somebody submitted a complaint and just gave 2 other.
They provided
appraisal
3 reports and only one of them actually had the name of the respondent on there. And that is what the respondent notes. That's what I observed. And that's what the expert reviewer observed as well. I'm not sure of the rationale behind it or if it was a misattachment, but that's the information that we have.
I think it might be appropriate for them to take a use path class or training. I mean, not having a highest and best use analysis is just not acceptable today.
I just looking at the history of this appraiser, 2012 letter of warning, 2014 consent order use violations, 2017 consent order for unprofessional conduct, 2018 letter of warning for use PAP violations. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know that there shouldn't be a stiffer penalty than this. I mean, it's just it's a pattern of not following use PAP.
What constitutes unethical conduct in 2017?
I can pull up the consent order.
I meant to add that as a matter of practice and in response to to your request for that corrective education list, it's now on the iPad. So that you should see that going forward on your iPads if you ever want to reference that, if we get to that point that you need that.
So there is a very short statement of facts within this consent order. This was before I was here, so this is all the information that I have. It says the complaint was filed by a bank concerning an appraisal report for a property located in Tennessee. The appraisal that was the subject of this complaint was sent to an expert reviewer who reached the following conclusions. The neighborhood factors and trends were not adequately addressed or analyzed in violation of Standard Rule 11, 12, and 22, and 21. Sales comparison opinions, analysis, and conclusions were not properly supported in violation of Standard Rule 11, Standard Rule 14, Standard Rule 22. Site value was not supported in violation of Standard Rule 14, Standard Rule 22. And reconciliation does not address the quality or quantity of data used in the approaches to value in violation of Standard Rule 16 and Standard Rule 22. And that is all that's in the statement of facts for the 2017 consent order. And I'll pull up the complaints to see if there's any more information. I can read you the legal report entry from that complaint if you want me to, from this 2017, that resulted in the 2017 consent order. $2,000. The complainant is a bank who states respondent failed to comply with USPAP and law concerning appraisals for consumers' home for the purpose of consumer credit transaction. Complainant states the complainant asked for a response to a deficiency letter and that the respondent did not sufficiently answer the issues raised. Complainant states the appraisal had the property value in excess of $900,000 in the fall of 2016, but had sold in 2016 for $400,000. Respondent states that all previous listings and sales histories were reported and that the property had been purchased below market value. Respondent states the property was in need of TLC and was observed from the street only, so the condition of the interior was unknown to the respondent. Respondent states that based on heated square footage alone, that 135% increase was warranted. And then the reviewer's conclusions were for sales comparison, essentially everything that I read previously that they found. And then there was a recommendation for a $2,000 civil penalty, and the commission authorized a $4,000 civil penalty.
And so this was the unethical complaint?
That's for the 2017 consent order. Yes.
Did you say that the commission ordered a $4,000 fine? Is that what you said?
That's what it says on here. Yes.
That was right. I was glad to hear, we got to hear that.
To me, it sounds like a combination of education and the civil penalties is what, what I think would be reasonable here, because I think definitely a civil penalty, but also, I mean, some of these items are, they need to take some more coursework in addition to that, I believe. I'm open to discuss what those are, maybe the ethics course, maybe USPAT, maybe, those other ones, but I think we ought to consider that along with the civil penalty.
Just remind me one more time. What courses have they taken? Like in,
So that consent order didn't have any courses. It just had the civil penalty. Let me pull up and see if there's any other courses they were required to take. So in 2014, they were required to take a 15-hour residential reporting course, a 30-hour basic appraisal procedures course, and a 15-hour residential site valuation and course approach course. Sorry, these are scanned in, so some of the words are a little hard to read out.
Okay, I'll make a motion. This individual's, this is the fifth complaint now. So I'll make a motion that we require the residential report writing versus form filling, the ethics competency and negligence course, as well as the missing explanation courses. So that's 3 4-hour courses. And then in addition, a $1,500 civil penalty per each of the 3 issues noted by the expert reviewer.
Did you say that first course again? I didn't get it down. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me pull it back up.
Residential.
Okay. So it was residential report writing versus form filling, ethics, competency, and negligence, and then missing explanations.
Okay, thank you.
So those 3, and then 3 $1,500 civil penalties.
So 4,500 total.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, number 5 is 2026033881. This is related to a previous complaint that we received during the February 23rd, 2026 commission meeting, where they voted for the respondent to complete the 4-hour corrective education course, scope of work, appraisals, and inspections, as well as the 4-hour corrective education course, ethics, competency, and negligence, after determining that the respondent signed and certified an appraisal report without personally inspecting the subject property. I have given you each a form that is redacted, which includes the statement that is being regarded as the basis of the complaint received again, as well as a follow-up response that was received on Friday afternoon from the respondent pertaining to the rebuttal statement that was received from the complainant, which is in front of you. If you want to pick up the redacted appraisal form, The sentence that is under the comments on standards 2, 3, which has a redacted in it, is what the complainant is regarding as a violation. They state that, it states that another appraiser, which is what's redacted, provided significant real property appraisal assistance to the person signing the certification. He is a certified residential appraiser and performed the inspection, assisted with comparables, adjustments, and report. He is solely responsible for some of the inspections mentioned in the scope of work and appraiser certification. The respondent states that some of these were prior to the consent order being signed, and that some of them were while they were transitioning out of using this language after signing the consent order, and that the last page is an updated version of the sentence that they now use, where it says they provided significant real property appraisal assistance to the person signing the certification. He is a certified residential appraiser and assisted with the inspection, assisted with the comparables, adjustments, and report. He is solely responsible for some of the inspections mentioned in the scope of work and appraisal certification. The respondent's attorney has informed me that they will now be removing that last sentence, stating that the other appraiser is solely responsible, noting that they now understand that it causes confusion, and they assert that if they are signing the appraisal report, they are the ones that physically inspected it. It's a lot of information.
So is this related to the next two as well?
It's related to the next one, yes. Then the rest are representations for the next one.
So I need to recuse myself.
Yes.
So recusal for 5 and
Yes,
6, for Mr. Mansfield and Ms. Cook.
Thank you. And each of these are from 7 separate appraisals that were submitted with the complaint, and I can give you the date for each of them if you guys would like, as well as when the previous consent order was signed. Oh, the date is at the bottom. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Anna.
So with the recusal, no comments either, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Except for the last one, there's no date on the bottom of that one I see, but that is from, I know, June 17th, I believe. We'll double check. Yeah, June 17th, the last one is, which they say is their updated language.
Can we ask why recusal?
I mean, sure, we can let it's with we always ask individuals to recuse themselves if there may be the point of view of impropriety, but they were contacted about this complaint prior to the meeting. So we received several communications from the complainant, and they were emailed about it. So we think it's probably best that they recuse themselves from the matter, because it's at that point, it's no longer anonymous.
And the consent order, the previous consent order was executed on April 17th, 2026, I believe.
So these are almost all after.
Mhm.
All right, and I'm having a hard time concentrating. Can you just break down simply what this is regarding? I mean,
Yeah.
I get what it's regarding, but like, I want to know, is it because these appraisal reports were submitted during when we provided our consent or what we
The-
wanted to do with
the
this
com-
case?
The complainant believes that the respondent is still violating USPAP with these submitted appraisals despite signing the consent order. And so they submitted a new complaint with these. The respondent states that they have, some of them were for the day or a few days before they signed this is the respondent statements, before signing the consent order, and that the other ones were for a transitional phase between April 17th and 2026 and May 14th, 2026, where they were actively implementing their structural and reporting changes. And then the last one is where they state that they did update the language, but the complainant believes it's still in violation. So,
And this may be clear here in this, the legal report. Is the complainant illegal? I mean, sorry, I'm working on very little sleep. So is the complainant a lending institution?
A person.
Is a lender?
But it's no, it's from, I don't, yes. I know.
I have a question for you all.
I'm
Does-
going to Google something also and give you the answer. Sorry.
Okay, so I have a question for you all. So for my knowledge, with that disclaimer in there, does that make the appraisal qualified because they disclosed that? Somebody else did the inspections?
Can I answer that or no? So Fannie Mae on the form that they created, there's a pre-printed certification. And so this is trying to get by that. But no.
And the respondent is stating now if they sign, and again, this is just from their statement, they're stating if they sign an appraisal, they are the ones doing the personal inspection.
Because that's not what I'm reading.
Yeah, I feel like it's maybe presented in a way that makes it more hard to understand, but for residential appraisers that do this every day, I don't do this and I'm not familiar with their forms or this form or any form. But would this be common knowledge in the residential world that does this look like a way to try to get around some rule? So that's what
Yeah,
I'm kind of hearing.
I've never seen this before, and to state that another appraiser is solely responsible for the inspections, it begs the question why that person just didn't sign the report and move on. I don't know.
Who is on the engagement letter. You can't just let somebody else go do it without the lender authorizing that usually.
And with the previous complaint, I spoke with the respondent and explained to them what the expert reviewer noted was with the issue. And they stated that they didn't understand that that was the incorrect way to do it. And I explained to them, and they stated going forward that if they signed it, they were going to be the ones to personally inspect it. And if their employees signed it, they were going to be the ones to personally inspect it, and that they keep the disclaimer in there as a way to let clients know that another appraiser assisted. And that this morning, their attorney followed up saying that if they no longer need to use the last sentence in the disclosure, that they will remove it to avoid confusion. But that is all the up-to-date information that I have from each party.
So there's like 7 instances of kind of continued violation if we agree that there's a violation here. But this was about, was it an April situation that we've already handled? Was there a
I'm going to
higher
give you the
quantity back
date
then?
that the consent order was signed, and so then we can compare it to each of them. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to pull up the close.
So this is
Case.
a continuation of like a previous complaint. So this is just essentially a complaint saying they haven't stopped. Right. A different complainant though.
Was the prior instance that we discussed, was it about one violation or multiple violations?
The original complaint that was from a different complainant was regarding one appraisal that they submitted, but I believe this is a pattern that is being used. That this was a disclosure they were using with multiple appraisals submitted.
My take on this is that this appraiser has learned that this is not the appropriate way to do this at this point. I mean, I would imagine, I'm not making it. I would make a motion that so April 17th was when the consent order was
Yes,
signed.
they signed and submitted the consent order April 17th, and then they completed their courses to me, which I'll give you that date one second. Oh, on May 8th, they submitted all the courses on May 8th, 2026. And again, the June 17th is the most, which is the last page, is the most recent appraisal that I received from the complainant. which the respondent states they changed the language within that one. And so that's the most up-to-date information that I have, but the consent order was signed on April 17th, yes.
Did they modify this certification? I haven't read it from top to bottom in a long time, but where they blacked it out, is that a sentence they added?
We redacted anything that just gave any identifying information. So anywhere you see a black line with a redaction, it's us.
But that sentence itself, that says provided certificate to the state. I'm just gonna have to look at it.
That's a disclaimer that they are adding, and that's what the complainant is stating is the issue. I believe, that's my understanding.
Yes. And so if we're looking at the documents that we have here, we have 7, and all of them except one are post consent order.
So you're, you're telling us that they said that they were correcting it, but then they did not correct it. And
Also,
they continued the same pattern.
Three are prior consent orders. There's one that's April 16th, April 17th, April 3rd. And this was signed April 17th.
Look at the date of signature.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was looking at the date of inspection. I apologize.
So they said that they were going to correct this, but then they didn't, and they continued the same pattern to use this.
So their explanation, as I included in there, was that 3 of them were completed. This is their statements, that 3 of them were completed prior to the consent order execution of April 17th, and that the remaining 3 reports, and this is because the 7th one hadn't come in yet, where they state that they changed their language. They were just referring to the first 6. And that the remaining 3 reports were completed during the transitional phase between April 17th and May 14th, in which the respondent was actively implementing the structural and reporting changes required by the consent order. And then the last page is where they're saying that they changed the language to state that they assisted instead of performed. And that they are now only signing forms that they personally inspected, and if their employee inspected it, then the employee is signing it. But that they had this disclaimer in their forms.
Just for discussion purposes, regardless of the April 17th signature of the consent order, they were aware, at least made aware by the complaint, that they were doing something inappropriate throughout the time period before that as well. Yeah. So. Did we have a civil penalty with our consent order?
No. Actually, let me just double check that. I believe it was just courses, but I could be misremembering. Yeah, it was just courses. It was, which they completed on May 8th. It was scope of work, appraisals and inspections, as well as a 4-hour corrective course, ethics, competency, and negligence. And then the other form I gave you is a follow-up response that they submitted on Friday, the respondent. Yes.
So one question I've got, this that was received today, I think it was today, is that right?
Friday, and
Friday.
then their attorney sent an email this morning advising that they were not going to use that last sentence where it says he is solely responsible for some inspections mentioned in the scope of work and appraisal certification because they can see how that causes confusion, is the email I received.
I'm not familiar with the Fannie Mae form either. Is that consistent with what is to be expected or would be normal for a Fannie Mae appraisal certification? As far as how that describes there, I mean, is that,
How it's written here,
no, what they said they're going to utilize going forward? I'm just not as familiar.
I'm gonna compare it. I'm looking at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
one that I had for review and their
Use your microphone.
Oh, I am comparing the actual form with their copy of the form, and there are differences. So let me review this.
You want to click on there, that there to the right. Yep, there you go.
Okay, I'll review this real quick, but their certification that's blacked out, the words don't match the form, at least that I use. It's reworded.
Can you point which word you're saying are
Okay.
blacked out on here? Just like literally no point on here and I can tell you what the words are. Okay, that's a name.
Right, but I used the same certification and I was comparing it and the order and the verbiage is different.
Okay, yes. So it seems that this person has customized it. I just want to be clear.
Yes,
Like the only redactions are the identifying information. And it's not, the name here is not the name of the respondent.
I guess my question is, if you're doing it correctly, why would you need to revise the verbiage that's on the pre-printed form?
Yes, their statement is just that they want to be disclosing that another appraiser that works with them is involved. That's the explanation I received.
So if there was an appraisal that had got turned in and there was a use PAP violation, who would the commission hold responsible for the appraisal?
The signing appraiser, would assume.
I just don't understand their intent, and this is very, I guess, concerning for the public going forward. If there is, I feel like there's some reason for this. I don't know. It's just very strange. That would be like me having a real estate contract and then I put somebody else's name at the bottom, even though, I'm the broker in charge or I'm handling the situation just to take away my liability in the transaction. And so it just seems, I don't know. This is very strange to me.
I'm gonna read a quote from this rebuttal. Respondent states they have modified their appraisal process to ensure when they sign as an appraiser on Form 100470, they have personally been present at the property and performed complete visual inspection of the interior and exterior of the subject property. To me, that implies that prior to this occurring, they did not do that. Their appraisal process included something different, either intentional or negligent, but incorrect.
That was the basis of the previous consent order, yes. So you're correct.
And the previous consent order included the educational requirements, correct?
Correct, the two
Right.
two corrective education courses.
So I don't think we need to do that again, right? I mean, we've kind of handled that. So I think we discuss the
penalty?
civil penalty and move on.
I agree. I'm make a motion, make a civil penalty of $500 for either, what is item 6 referring to? Is item 6 and 5 combined or?
So the next one is related to the other appraiser who is working with this respondent. They filed a complaint against both. And I think something that should be included in the motion is exactly what you want the respondent to do going forward regarding these disclosures and their appraisals.
Can we dictate business practice?
No, just regarding, they stated basically if there's something that the commission wants them to be doing differently, they would like to know.
William, could you finish your, or you may have. a
Well,
comment, but-
I do have one question before, just so that I can follow properly. The original complaint, would we know about about what we're talking about now if it had not been a new complainant? Because it's a new complainant that complained. So there was
Yes.
the original complaint,
Mhm.
then they had to do the education, no civil penalty. Then they continued to do what they weren't supposed to do. But we would not have known that if there had not been a different complaint. Is that correct?
I'm not sure how else we would know if there was not a complainant, so correct, yes.
That would be my only issue is that how are we going to know going forward that they're going to continue to not continue to do this without there being a complaint?
With regard to your clarification request, it seems like the request would be just use the form as written rather than manipulate or customize.
And maybe some sense of assurance there, Mr. Bynum, is that there's enough folks kind of brought into that circle that I suspect that whatever they do is gonna be under intense scrutiny. You know, there was a pretty wide net that they cast as far as awareness. So I maybe not in process, we depend on complaints. You know, we don't have an active inspections or, wing that goes out. However, in this case, there's enough folks that are aware of that if they were to revert to old practices, I assume, I'm pretty sure we get another complaint on this one.
I think that they should revert to the original form, or I think it's the original form that I'm using, and it says, unless otherwise indicated, I have made a personal inspection of this property, et cetera. And then
Lost you there. Yep.
in the addendum space below, they can type the name of who did it versus modifying the certification pre-printed verbiage.
I make a motion for there to be a $500 civil penalty and to use the form as printed by Fannie Mae.
So is that one $500 penalty?
One $500 penalty. I think that this issue, though there have been numerous, it seems like, but issues going through here that it would seems to hopefully correct itself. But yes, one $500 penalty.
And just for clarification, it would be a $500 penalty and a recommendation to use Fannie Mae. I don't know if we could require them. I mean, but yeah, recommendation.
Recommendation.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Just want to make sure we get that in there and, yeah.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor.
I would have a differing motion if this one fails.
I'll second, or do I have to make the motion? I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We will roll call vote this.
The alternative motion was going to be $500 per instance that we've received here. So I think that's 7 total. So 500 times 7.
And, that's part of the further discussion. If you wanted to amend your motion, you could do that, or we could proceed with the vote on the original motion. So that would be entirely up to you, Mr. Haston, as a result of those comments. Or we can just do the vote and then see where we fall out and then do another motion. That's fine too. Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
So,
I can amend my motion. Yeah. So let's do $500 per.
Can I ask a question on that? You said, my understanding, I may be wrong about this, when there was like 7 we're talking about, were some of those occurring before our motion had actually took place. I guess, I guess what my concern is the ones that happened after our ruling had come out.
The date of signature for just one of them is prior to the consent order being executed.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not penalizing them for ones that had occurred prior to our ruling. If these are all after that point, I'm fully in agreement with you.
I make a motion for $500 per occurrence after April 17th, 2026. And for the certification to be as stated in Fannie Mae.
Okay. That's our motion then. Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a second for Mr. Bynum?
Any further
for-
discussion?
Discussion, I think I just counted, I believe there's 6 total instead of 7, if that's the cutoff. So just for clarification, it'd be 6 instead of the 7 I mentioned.
So you're looking at what, 6 times 5, 3,000, and then a recommendation to use Fannie Mae statement. So then we'll just need a second then.
I think we
We
had a
did.
second.
You did. You're
Yeah, we did
correct.
get a second. So we're
That's
ready
right.
for roll call
All right,
vote.
Thank you. All right, roll call vote then. I'll just go down the line then. Dr. Sunderman? Just the aye or nay or is fine.
Aye.
Okay. Ms. Mello?
Aye.
Ms. Tuck? Oh, that's right. Thank you. We, yeah, people that recuse themselves don't vote. Yeah, thank you for clarifying. Mr. Pratt?
Aye.
Mr. Haston?
Aye.
Mr. Van Dever?
Aye.
And Mr. Bynum?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much. That one passes.
Okay, the next one, number 6, is 2026-033-951. This is involving the appraiser who was being notated in the previous complaint.
And for clarification, this is the inspecting appraiser from the prior, from all prior reports, but not the signing appraiser.
Correct. It's the appraiser being noted in that disclosure that they've assisted and or inspected the property, but they are not the ones signing the reports.
So we did send them a letter of warning earlier.
Correct. At the previous meeting. No, that's the next one. This is number 6. We give them a letter of warning.
I make a motion that we, I'm going to say this wrong, not fine, but civil penalty, require $3,000 civil penalty for this person as well.
Got a motion on the floor? Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
For discussion purposes, I feel like the distinction is one is the signer solely responsible for everything in the report, and the other person is just mentioned as assisting. Do we hold both to the same exact standard? That's just a question for the group.
My issue was you got a letter of warning, but then you continue to me, I felt like that there is, culpable as the other person because they got a letter of warning that said, stop doing this, but then they continue to still do it.
I think that the last paragraph for me is regarding the ethics rule is enough of a, knowingly signing a report that contained false certifications to be transmitted. I think that's consistent with signing a report that had the same issues. So I believe both should be held responsible for the same amount.
We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, we're ready for roll call vote.
Just ayes or nays then. Roll call vote then. Dr. Sunderman,
Aye.
Ms. Mello,
Aye.
Mr. Pratt,
Aye.
Mr. Haston,
Aye.
Mr. Van Dever,
Aye.
and then Mr. Bynum.
Aye.
All right. That one passed.
Okay, the next two are represents. Number 7 is 202-5074121. In this, it was previously presented regarding a failure to provide a paid-for appraisal at the last meeting. I spoke with the respondent. The respondent requested for me to inquire if the complainant would prefer a completed appraisal or a refund. They requested a refund, and on July 15th, 2026, the respondent informed counsel that they would be issuing a refund to the complainant and said they were trying to turn things around. As explained in the previous summary, they were having health issues. I was recommending closure since they informed us that they would be issuing a refund.
It seems like from my recollection, this one turned out the way we were maybe hoping for. Last time we discussed it, so I would make a motion to accept the recommendation to close.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next one is 202503931. This was another similar issue with a failure to provide a appraisal that was paid for. The respondent confirmed the complainant was fully refunded on December 16th, 2025, and believed that the issue was resolved. They explained that due to personal issues on December 16th, 2025, there had been approximately a 1-week delay in providing the appraisal to the complainant. Accordingly, on the 16th, the respondent states the complainant requested to cancel the appraisal and requested a refund. The respondent states the refund was issued on the same day to the primary point of contact. Accordingly, I was recommending closure.
Make a motion to close.
Got a motion on the floor?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That concludes legal. 8.
Legal from Taylor.
Yeah, just got a legislative update.
It's very brief. So legislative session is over. I believe you may have received an email with legislative updates. There were not any specifically to our statutes. The ones that I'll discuss today are ones that apply to everyone. So the first one is the law that's known as the Military Families Licensing Recognition Act. So it is related to out-of-state licensure. So it's very similar to the rules that we already have in place, but there are a couple of other additional requirements that we have to do internally. So I don't see anything directly impacting the way that this commission operates with military licensing. And the second one is related to eligibility requirements. So the statute, which is Public Chapter 955, updated the license eligibility requirements for multiple professional licenses to require individuals either be a U.S. citizen or a qualified alien as defined by federal law in order to be eligible for licenses covered by this law. So previously, it included U.S. citizens, qualified alien, or foreign national. Foreign national portion was removed from the statute in this particular portion. And then the last one I'll talk about is not something that's necessarily going to impact the way that we do things here, but it was a statute change related to essentially rulemaking. So it's called the Regulatory Flexibility Freedom Act of 2026, I think. And so it's just going to require us to take additional steps related to fiscal impact on rules that are moving forward, what kind and how that is going to be reported. And then additionally, the types of notice that we provide to our rulemaking for individuals. So such as it would include us we would have to tell essentially known trade associations, hey, we are doing a rulemaking, which those is available at this time for them to go ahead and, sign up for our e-notify. But this particular portion, this one related to rules, doesn't go in effect until January 1st. So we still have some time and we're still working through how all of the executive agencies are going to implement that. Any questions? No? Okay, great.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else from legal? No? All right. Looks like we're ready then for our committee report. There may be a couple action items coming out of that one. Chairman Van Dever.
This morning, myself, William, and Nelson met for the second time regarding the complaint review process we've been discussing for a long time. And our goal today was to have some action items, which we have. Per our last meeting, our goal was to potentially adopt a form or forms for complaint review and establish a set of fees. We've done both in the form of a committee motion that you'll be hearing in a minute. And I guess I could go ahead and just let me outline those. So the first one regarding the forms, we were presented by legal a form that's being used in the process already. It's a PDF that you can fill out. And then also Randy Button and Kevin McGuigan had provided an example of an appraisal review form. We decided not to make either one mandatory, but to present both as options for potential reviewers. Just so that if someone actually does have their own form, that we're not making them go outside their box for no reason. So that will be made in the form of a motion as a recommendation to any potential reviewers for the complaint process. And then the second separate motion will be for a fee structure. We basically found out over the past several years that residential review fees are about $600, $500 to $600, and commercial, which becomes much more infrequent than residential in terms of complaints, was slightly higher than that. We've agreed to propose a residential base fee of $1,000 per review and a commercial floor fee of $2,000 per review, with the option for the reviewer to make a proposal if the scope of work exceeds what would be normally expected out of a commercial review. So that will be in the form of a motion. And I guess part of that would be clear communication to that to both potential reviewers, just so they know what's out in front of them. Other things we discussed were having access to current board members and past board members as potential mentors for people that are maybe appraisers for 20, 30 years and just want another set of eyes. Part of my experience through doing experience interviews is not everybody has a great supervisor, not everybody has a great mentor. And oftentimes people that go the license route, in my opinion, they go solo really quickly and they don't know what they don't know. And so a lot of the upgrades that I've had from licensed to certified, those are the hardest to navigate. And so just make it open and available for anybody, regardless of if you're a trainee, a licensed, certified, whatever, to reach out to a board member to either screen a report you have, or if it's a trainee, do a pre-interview if they don't have anyone that they trust to do it. But that's some feedback that I gathered from the last meeting to this meeting, is kind of a way to bring this process back together and start it at the experience interview process and the mentor process, rather than focus on only complaints. Because if you kind of beat the guys to it, or beat the appraisers to it, then there may never be a complaint process. So that was just some feedback I gathered from some professionals in the industry. And we also agreed that we feel like the committee, whether we're on it or not, doesn't matter, but should meet frequently or regularly. And we discussed having a meeting at this time next year. So it's not on the books, nothing formal, but we feel like we should review the decisions we made or are making and see if there are any additional decisions that need to be made in the future. And William or Nelson, you guys can add anything you'd like.
Excellent. Thank you all for your work. I know that was an additional work. Are there any questions, discussions, questions for the committee?
Yeah, the only thing then at that point, and good review, that summarized everything. I captured that, what I couldn't have sounded out better. So thank you for going through that. So then you did have two motions that you introduced. And so the first one was the forms. And so just to outline what those two forms are, you have them on your iPads. There was the one that's entitled, and I denote any committees through, they'll have the prefix of com for committee, so that way you can recognize it. But near the bottom, you'll see it's the review form example 2025. That's the one from Mr. Button, from Mr. McGuigan. And then the one in current use is just below that. So, and the motion, I believe, from the committee, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that we offer that just as a template, a guide, not as like, a requirement, but so someone that gets an idea about what are the data points we're trying to capture, in essence.
And just for some clarification, the reason we chose both and not just one or the other is they both have a different format. One seems to be a little bit more narrative focused with less explanation in the form. And then the other one is more of a checklist, but provides some context to each line. So I feel like it provides a little bit of added information for the reviewer.
So basically, at the time of proposal or contract, when we have prospects that are looking in and delving into what it is that be required of them, that gives them some essence. And so that was the motion. And that comes from the committee. Yeah, so that's a committee motion.
Okay, so we've got a motion on the floor.
Second?
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Again, thank you all.
All right, and then the second motion was the fee structure, the floor, just to make that more competitive. And then again, we'll have to check it all through contracts. I'll take this back to them, because that's really that's at the point of entry for our subject matter experts. But the proposal was a floor of 1,000 for the residential and 2,000 for commercial.
For clarification there, the 1,000, we had a range that we discussed for the residential, and we settled on 1,000 as basically just being the same fee for all residential. And then commercial, we all agreed that there could be some outlier properties that would far exceed the fee structure we could come up with. So we basically established a floor, and then the appraiser the reviewer would be able to submit a proposal if the scope of work exceeds what would be expected.
One thing, these are desk reviews, right? They're not field reviews. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, there's no property inspection, and it's also not a finding of value. So it's just a use PAP compliant review.
Yes, good point.
So we do have a motion from the committee. Need a second?
Second?
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
This increase is to help try to get reviewers to actually want to actually review them.
And also provide the quality of that would be in this new checklist that's provided, provide that level of detail. So A, to increase the pool, but B, to kind of set a standard of here's the level of detail that we would expect on one of these reviews.
I agree with the flexibility in terms of the commercial. I can see that, especially depending upon the extent of what this commercial appraisal, I mean, it could be quite extensive. So that flexibility, I think, is far more important for commercial than it is for residential.
Any more discussion? Okay, I think we're ready for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Thank you for your work. I appreciate that. I know it's a lot to go over, a lot to sort of hash out. So thank you for, doing the legwork for us so we can get to something actionable. New business. Do we have any new business? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move to public comment. We did have one person chime in on the boards, and then we'll get to anybody else that may be there. Barry Shea, he's from the Appraisal Foundation State Harmonization Task Force. He joined us virtually and has been listening to our meeting, and then he wanted to just introduce himself to the board. We were introduced to several of them, I guess, the last iteration in person, but I don't believe Mr. Shea was available at the time. But he's going to be the one that they've designated to be our contact liaison for Tennessee. And so, Mr. Shea, are you online?
I am here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Just a little background. I've served on the New Hampshire Real Estate Appraiser Board for 5 years back in the early 2000s. Been involved with the Appraisal Foundation in various roles, including chairing TAFAC and being on that council for about 8 years. 8 years on the Appraisal Standards Board, chaired that for 3 years. And I've been doing miscellaneous stuff for the foundation since. Recently appointed to this task force, and I've been asked to act as a liaison with several states, including Tennessee. The purpose of the task force is to try to keep some uniformity among the states so that people are getting experience credits for similar items. That makes the non-license, the out-of-state license a whole lot easier doing the reciprocal issues if there's uniformity. We're also looking at everybody's statutes and regulations to try to limit the number of overlays that the states have on top of the AQB requirements. It's understood that some states are going to have some, but some states have got a lot of them, and it makes it difficult for appraisers to become licensed or certified. I'm basically here as a resource. Glenn has my contact info. Any questions or concerns where you think I can help out, let me know. And I'll look forward to your next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shea. Appreciate you taking the time and introducing yourself. And again, and just relay that as well, or amplify that. If you had anything that you wanted me to take to Mr. Shea, by all means, send that out to me, and then I'll make sure he gets that and puts that in his hand. And we appreciate your support. All right, thank you, Ms. Shea.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else online that would like to take advantage of the public comment period and address the commission? Okay. I'm gonna check here present. And no one signed in. Okay. There are no more public comments. Then Chair, we are free to adjourn if that be the will. Yes, ma'am.
We're just, as a residential appraiser, we're about to enter a whole new realm in the next couple of months, if you're not familiar with that. The UAD 2.6 is going to the UAD 3.6, which is an entirely different, it's not a form, it's a report. And it's going to look entirely different than what you've seen if you're reviewing other people's work. So I've heard we should all become familiar with that to be able to review it. But that actually is required by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in I think November 26th. It's going to go into greater use beginning in September, I believe, but not all the software is ready for it at this point. It's a huge change. So if you haven't heard about that, you just need to know about it.
And I'm really thankful that both you and Miss Mello are going to the conference, because Freddie Mae and Freddie Mac, they always send Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they always send representatives, and they always have a piece there. So, and I imagine everybody else is going to be, that does that residential side of the business, is going to be talking about it and, pumping them for information. So that's good. I'm glad you're there. All right. Yes, sir.
I think for our purposes too, it might be important to keep our finger on the pulse in terms of licensing and what that looks like
Yes,
over this
sir.
change.
Yes, sir.
But that's
Yeah.
down the line, and we'll see the implications of that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anything else? All right. Well, that will conclude our meeting today. Thank you all.
Thank you. We're adjourned.